Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be reviewing and comparing a couple of free patterns from some of my favorite yarn companies. So the two hats that I'm going to be making today are the Sunseeker pattern from Wool & the Gang and the Sunny Bucket Hat from We Are Knitters. Both of these companies offer a wide range of products related to knitting and crocheting, including wool, needles, hooks, and then as well as that, they both offer kits that you can make whichever patterns that you choose. They'll send you everything that you need in the one kit. Both of their websites also contain a free pattern section, which is where I got both of the patterns for these hats, as well as a tutorial section where they will help you along the way as you're getting through any of their patterns or kits. Both of these patterns start out with like a little introduction page where they explain the pattern and they list the materials needed and they go over all of the skills that you're going to need to complete the pattern. The We Are Knitters pattern goes over the skills at the beginning of the pattern, and the Wool & the Gang pattern lists the skills, and then at the end of the pattern you can find the explanation of how to actually do the skills. But as far as that goes, both of them do explain each skill step by step in their pattern, so it makes it really easy for a beginner crocheter to complete either project. Like I mentioned, both of them include the steps that you need as well as the materials. So I have gathered all of the materials that I need to complete these patterns. The We Are Knitters pattern calls for 1 ball of their cotton, and the Wool & the Gang pattern also calls for their cotton. They don't specify how much you need, but it is 5 different colors, and they suggest that you could use some scraps of previous balls that you used before. So just based on the size of the hats and the similarity, I'm assuming that it's probably about 1 ball's worth as well. I do have a bunch of We Are Knitters cotton already around my apartment because, as you guys might know, it's my favorite yarn. I went online to order some cotton from Wool & the Gang, but they are sold out of a lot of colors and their color selection was very limited, so I decided to just make both of them out of the We Are Knitters cotton. So I have used the cotton from Wool & the Gang before, so I already know that they are a pretty similar cotton, but even aside from that, when I looked through both of the patterns, the gauge is exactly the same for both, so I knew it could be pretty easily interchanged. So I've done my gauge swatch, and I have found that I needed to size down a 1/2 size in crochet hook to match the gauge. So I've got my crochet hook and I've got my yarn ready, and now we're ready to go. These are my finished hats. This one here is the Sunseeker hat from the Wool & the Gang pattern, and then this one is the Sunny Bucket Hat from the We Are Knitters pattern. So aside from one being striped and one being a solid color pattern, they're just slightly different shape. The Sunseeker is more of like a gradual brim, and the Sunny Bucket Hat has, as you can see here, like a more obvious brim shape. As far as actual fitting, they are a pretty similar size on my head. I think Like I mentioned, I sized down in crochet hook to match the gauge, but if you did want to have kind of a bit more of a bigger bucket hat or a floppier hat, then you could just make your gauge just slightly bigger. So where I had to size down, I wouldn't have sized down, or you could just size up by half a size. And I think that would make it just like a little bit bigger if you wanted that style of hat, but I really like how both of these fit. So aside from the physical differences, the differences in the patterns themselves were not too crazy. Both of them were very easy to follow along with. As I talked about in the beginning, both of them explain to you how to work through every stitch and skill that you're going to need. So you don't have to look anywhere else for that information. They do provide links to other places to find that information, but you can find it all in the pattern. So if you're a beginner crocheter, you can figure out all of those steps with it, just the pattern that is provided. Yeah, you also don't need a lot of materials to make this. Basically, it's just one ball of cotton yarn, one crochet hook, the needle for sewing in your ends, and some stitch counters to get through it. As far as how the patterns are laid out, they're pretty similar, pretty easy to follow. I will say, if I'm being picky about it, that the Wool in the Gang one, so this the one for the Sunseeker that I'm wearing, just the text is a slight bit bigger and it's spaced out a little bit more. So if I'm being nitpicky, it's a little bit easier to follow, but honestly, at the end of the day, they're both very simple and easy to follow. They both have a pretty consistent increase pattern or repetition of rows, so it's very easy to follow along if you're watching a movie or watching Netflix or anything else while you're doing it. It's easy enough to look at the next few rows, what you need to do, work on them, and then like find the place where you were at. As well, it's equally as easy to pick up where you were after you put it down for a little while. I made both of these hats in less than 24 hours, so the time that it took to make them was not very long either, so you can get through the pattern pretty quickly. So in conclusion, I would honestly recommend both of these patterns. Both of them are very simple and both of them made very cute hats. I don't have a complaint about either of them. I would say if you wanted to pick one or the other, then just choose based on which shape you like better, but they're free patterns, so you could make both. So I hope you try it out, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.